Hello, everybody. It's another Monday evening. We are talking tonight all about the High Republic Phase 2, not the Phase 2 High Republic. We're going to go through how we felt it's gone so far. We got a little bit of news. We're talking some Bad Batch. Basically, we're just happy to get the crew back together to talk some Star Wars. But before we get into all of that, you know, you got to lock in, you got to belt up, and you got to look at Wes and say, Wes, it's time to go on an adventure. In order to do that, we have to punch it! And welcome to the Living Force, a Utini Network podcast tonight, all about the High Republic Phase 2 and just how we're doing. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Eilerson, and joining me tonight to talk all things about our favorite Star Wars initiative is the full crew, reunited after so long. He trudged through the desert, he trudged through the snowfall, and he is finally back home in his sim rig. It's Dr. Corey Helton. Welcome back, buddy.
Thank you very much for that kind intro. One of these days, I'm going to do the damn show from this.
I can't wait.
I'm not going to tell anybody. Excited. I'm just going to set up a whole separate camera, and then while the intro rolls, I'm going to make it happen. So one day.
Absolutely. But you're here. We missed you, man. It's been like...
I am. Good Lord.
3 weeks? 4 weeks?
4 weeks? I don't know. Too freaking long. I feel it. I feel the distance. Distance makes the heart grow fonder, as they say.
That's
Funny
right.
Enough, I still hate you guys, but whatever.
Well, we're going to go on a dinner date after this. But you know who's going to be picking up the check for the nachos? I don't know where that came from. Dr. Charles Hankel. Hi, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. I trudged through my family room. I trudged up the stairs, and I still made it here. I changed nothing.
You changed nothing, and that's good because, you know what? You hit perfection. Why adjust it? That's what I say. Although, speaking of perfection, Charles, I can't give you that title because that title belongs to one man. belongs to one man behind the keys, belongs to one man pressing the buttons, belongs to one man whose eyes I gaze into, and I feel like this cold, cold world is going to be warm again. It's Mr. Wes Jenkins. Hey, man.
Hello,
God damn.
I hope everyone is doing great tonight. It was a nice, cool 40 to 50 degrees a couple days ago, and now it's 85. So it's
Welcome
getting back to Texas. February weather is no longer February weather. And also, it points out how old I am because I'm talking about the weather. And that's really all we can figure out to talk to people at work with in the elevator is, damn, it's hot out, right? And it's like, oh, yeah, really? I mean, it was like 40 a couple days ago. Or like, oh, Jesus, our lives. So anyways.
I will say that's one nice thing about working remote is that we have a bunch of folks from all over the country, and that we had a meeting this past week at work, and literally every meeting starts with, so how are you guys doing? Because we have people from Chicago that are freezing and going to die. Me, it's like 65. It's fine. And then we did have someone in Texas, so we've been following the ups and downs of you guys. So you know what? If you're not talking about the weather, you're not paying attention, and you don't care about the heat death of the universe. But you know what you do care about? Star Wars. Hi, everyone. Welcome in. If you're watching us live, hello. Hope you're having a great week. If you're watching us later, I hope you had a great week. Go ahead, hit that like button, and subscribe to the channel. Our subscribers keep growing, which is great because you get to see the amazing video content the team is putting out. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcatcher, the other ones, make sure that you rate the show. Leave a couple kind words. Make sure people know how to find your favorite show all about Star Wars content. Before we get into that, however, because we're talking Bad Batch, we're going to talk High Republic, and we got some news for you because it's been so long. Corey, I got to check in with you, man. How was the everything? You have been all over the country having a whole life without us. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. I did another kind of 2-week stint out in Arizona at the Navajo Reservation as a hospitalist out there again, and a little more exhausting this time around. I'm not really sure why that was, but those 12-hour shifts really stack up. About day 8 out of 10, I was really dragging. I was ready to be home at that point, but it was good. I learned a bunch more. I had some really complex patients, so I learned a lot of stuff. I came back. We had 1 day back. Caitlin and I have been playing the crap out of Hogwarts Legacy, which is really fun.
Yes, sir.
Then we went on a ski trip. Caitlin bought me a ski trip for Christmas this year, which is maybe the most pretentious thing that I've ever said in my life. My wife bought me a ski trip. It's like, Jesus Christ, it hurts to even say it. But we went
you didn't message us, and you're like, oh, fellas, I'm afraid the slopes are calling me. I can't be on the show, I'm afraid. It was very odd.
I know. I forgot to tell you guys until like the week before. That was embarrassing. We went to Snowshoe, West Virginia, which is probably some of the best skiing I've been told in like the Southeast. Like probably the best skiing on the East Coast is probably like Vermont and stuff. But it was really cool. It was like an inverted resort. So like the resort's on the top of the mountain, and like you ski down the hill. This was also like a big test to see if Caitlin likes skiing, because like we've only been skiing one time before and we didn't take lessons or anything, and she really didn't have a good time. So this time we're like, this is the trip to see if Caitlin can like skiing. And so she took a bunch of lessons, like some group lessons, some private lessons, and by the end of the week she went down a big hill, like a real one. So she made some really big progress. So I think we're probably going to talk about Wes next week, next week. So next year, I think we'll probably try to go on a real ski trip. As they say, next year. So, it was a good time. We had a really good time. I'm tired. I'm glad I'm home finally. Today was like the first normal day I feel like I've had back in like a month. So it was nice to be back in my office.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. And your office is so well lit. If you've never seen the video show, it's really lovely to see. So I bet that's very calming. Charles, I want to hear about your week, but before I do that, Wes, in our notes here, a very monumental event happened. You were going through it. For previous listeners of the show may know Wes has had a particularly large adult moment that did get fixed. How you doing? Let our listeners know
First,
what arrived.
I gotta talk to Dale. Dale, I thought about it real hard, and I was convinced that I had to purchase a new one, but I was going to get a motor for a 1998 washing machine. I couldn't even find the thing online for a manual to figure out where the motor was. The only way that I found out where the motor was that I drug it outside to flip it end over end to send it to the curb. So, and I was like, oh, there's the motor right under there, upside down. I probably ruined it by turning it upside down. But anyways, I got a new washing machine, everybody, and it's really exciting when you're 38 years old and you can't wait to dirty up your clothes so you can wash the clothes and watch them go. I washed one load of clothes, and when it was done, it sang to me and made some weird noise that was just like... And I was like, what the hell was that?
The stupid songs.
And it was like the cheapest washer they had at Home Depot too. And I was like, wow, I have skipped an entire generation of washing machine technology to get to where I am right now. So anyways,
Wes, you might not know that song just yet, but give it a couple months and you're gonna find yourself whistling it just like while you're at work for no apparent reason.
You absolutely are.
You'll learn your little jingle.
You absolutely are.
Walking by somebody's office and they're like, you have the LG washing machine with the agitator? And you're like, yeah, dude.
Does it connect to Wi-Fi? That's like the true test of how bougie. Yeah, there you go.
Wi-Fi. It's
what
just
stupid. Listen, the Chinese are probably spying on your laundry habits.
Spy balloons, spy washing machine. That's a relevant reference.
Yes.
Well, we're happy for you, Wes. Also, Trevor did point out in our chat, you might be a little quiet on the YouTube stream, so not to get in your head, but maybe look at those levels. Charles, did you get a washing machine? Did you go skiing? Impress us. What are you up to?
None of the
Impress
above.
us. Entertain me, Charles.
No pressure. No, I didn't do any of that stuff, but I did get to spend some time with my sister.
Nice.
She came to town, and we just hit a bunch of favorite Charlotte spots. Eat well, ate well. Yeah, there it is. Drank well. Had wonderful ice cream. 2 scoops. If no one's ever been there in Charlotte. And that was about it. And she brought me some fantasy books, a series that she's been reading, because I'm trying to expand beyond Star Wars. I know it's a sin to say that on this podcast, but I've been trying a little bit, and yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
That's awesome, man. Well, and I gotta say, since everyone's been listening, probably, I think this is new. Corey, you also read the entire Mistborn trilogy while you were gone.
I know. I can't do anything in moderation. While I was out west, I read 3 800 to 1,000 page novels in like 10 days. I don't know how I do these type of stuff. I probably don't retain any of it. It's just gone now, but I did it.
But you liked it. You really liked it.
I friggin' loved it. And Charles, I think I have to you to thank for that, because I think you're the finally who pushed me over the edge to read the first one. And I had kind of started it before I went on the trip. I think it was only like 20 pages, 50 pages in or something like that. But I basically read it nonstop for the whole plane ride, every moment I had in the airport, all the way there. And book is fantastic. 10 out of 10. I loved the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. I know everybody said that he's like, God among men when it comes to writing fantasy in our generation, but it was very, very good. I was a huge fan. Nice palate cleanser, honestly, to read something sci-fi fantasy outside of Star Wars, because I haven't really done that in a long time. I know I read Fellowship like last year. I told you guys about that, but I haven't read a lot of fantasy. It feels a little like there's a big barrier to entry with fantasy for some reason with me.
Oh,
like
for sure.
I tried Dune last year or 2 years ago, and I just couldn't do it. It was too brutal. I finally got on board for this
like
one.
A lot.
It's staring at me every time I walk past another room. It's like that book of Dune. It's not good. It's hard to read.
It's hard to read. I listened.
I also tried.
It's the most complex audiobook I've ever listened to. I kid you not, my wife and I listened to 2 hours on a road trip, and I still had no freaking clue what the hell was going on after 2 hours of listening to it. And I'm just like, the lore is too brutal, so it really scared me about fantasy for a while. But like, Mistborn is complicated, but you learn all the lore you need in like the first 3 chapters, and the prose is unbelievable. Like, I was really blown away with how good the book was.
I think I read the first one brought it up and you're like, oh, I've thought about that before. And then you have now finished the trilogy and I am on page 1 of the second book.
I know. It's just how I do everything. But I speed read stuff, unfortunately. I skip through some of I don't do it intentionally. I'm just so excited to get through the plot that when a big battle happens, it's kind of like skim. Who survived? That's kind of how I read. So it's unfortunate, I think, at times.
Whatever works for you.
I can't not do that. It's how
man.
Entertain. So
I'm excited to join you guys on the journey because I just finished Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars this week, so I got my next Star Wars book out of the way. The reviews, of course, coming up on release day. But I've already texted Charles separately because Charles, again, lives closer to me now. I'm going to be borrowing the first Mistborn book soon because I do want to get on the train with you guys, and I keep hearing that's great because I foolishly decided I'm going to get on the Sanderson train last year, and I'm like, I'm just going to buy The Way of Kings, which is the first Stormlight Archives book that's 1,200 pages long, and I think I got 140 pages in, and I had a Dune-type reaction of okay, this is great.
That's my next one, I think.
I'm not in there yet, but I've heard that's great.
Well, heads up,
I'm excited.
He had that, Brandon Sanderson had that Kickstarter, right? To
Yeah.
write additional novels, whatever, without having to go through a publisher or whatever it was, made some ungodly amount of money. And I think the first book in that series comes out in April. They release the first 5 chapters.
Might be fun.
Online.
Maybe we should just we'll all read it together or something. It might be fun. I don't know.
We got time.
Fun.
Yeah. Wes is
I will say
the audiobook.
Wes did
I will
not
say the
agree to
audiobook
that.
for the audiobook for Mistborn. It's not what's his name that does all the Star Wars audiobooks. It's not Mark Thompson, let me tell you.
Yeah,
We
get
listening
spoiled.
to it, and
We get spoiled.
every single time we turn it in the car, it's because we did driving for the ski trip. Every time we turn it on, 5 minutes.
Oh, no.
Every time.
It's probably not a
real
good idea while you're
dry.
driving.
Oh my God.
She's listening to it. I hear her listening to it in there right now. So she's into it. She's into it now.
Yeah. It's funny. I do really appreciate the palate cleanser between Star Wars books and things to do that to keep us into reading because I think that's hard as an adult. Last night I finished Battle Scars 2 a.m. and I actually started reading the second Charles Soule non-Star Wars novel, Anyone, I think. I read the first 2 chapters of that, so excited for that. I hope that if you're listening, if you like other Star Wars or non-Star Wars stuff, rather, let us know what you're reading, what you're listening to, what you're playing. A lot of us have been gaming and stuff too, so it's nice to keep balance in life. But of course, we always come back to Star Wars, as does our glorious Patreon community, and we want to give a huge shout out and thank you to patreon.com/Utini. David Cross recently became a monthly patron. Thank you so much for that. And I hope you're enjoying all the great content, including the newly released MCU Teeny. Emma and her fantastic sister co-host are going through some MCU movies, giving some non-Star Wars stuff over there, of course. In addition to the Star Wars Archives, the upcoming episodes of The Ghost Crew, the movie commentaries, the Asheville 45-minute documentary, and more coming your way over at patreon.com/Utini. But beyond all the content, you get to know that you are helping everything at Utini run, at Utini.com, the podcast, and beyond. All right, let's jump into a quick Star Wars weekly roundup.
It's the Star Wars Weekly Roundup.
Oh, manga. We had an announcement this week.
Shut it down. Take
Absolutely awful. My
End the
God,
stream,
one of the
Wes.
worst.
End the stream immediately.
One of the worst I've ever
Wes
freaking
says
heard.
yes.
Holy
How long
damn.
have you been sitting on that goose egg?
I thought that you just didn't know what to say, but you knew the whole time. So
Absolutely
Charles, just like every other segue in this episode, I thought about it 2 seconds before I said it out loud. But we did get news this week about a manga, everyone. Star Wars The High Republic, of course, we're chatting about that tonight. This initiative has brought us stories from every single possible medium, including manga with the Edge of Balance series. And we got a cover reveal this week for Star Wars The Edge of Balance Precedent. Look at this glorious cover on screen right now. That is a younger Jedi Master Arkoff. If you've read the first 2 Edge of Balances, he was in the second one. This is going to be written by Daniel Jose Older with script and art by Tomoyo Ogata. This is coming out May 23rd. And I will say, I really enjoyed the Edge of Balance series. I like the second one better. It really flowed for me. Not a huge manga guy myself, but I want to ask you guys, what do you think about this cover? Because I got to say, with the red background and like the angry Wookiee teeth mixed with like the guy in the, like, it's very foreboding in a way. The other two were kind of light and inviting.
I like that
Good-looking
Wookiee.
cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
Good-looking cover.
Spider-Man in the middle?
It might be.
Is
No,
that,
no, that's 8 limbs.
A Spider-Man thing. That species, is that this? It can't be the same. Maybe it is the same from Clone Wars.
Oh,
That
Trench.
guy from Clone Wars.
Trench.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
I think it is.
Is it?
Enhance.
Let me see if I can
Enhance.
enhance.
No,
I
that
think
guy,
it is.
Doesn't he walk
Oh,
around
it
on
is.
like
It is.
claws?
Oh no! Oh no!
I thought Trench walked
No,
around on
look,
claws.
he's
like,
got the two.
Oh, yeah,
big
he's got
things.
the eyes.
and he's always
pincers.
like,
yeah, but I thought Admiral Trench walked around on like crab legs, like the
Oh,
like
no,
the
he has
villain from the
regular
first
feet.
Monsters Inc. movie. What's that guy? You know what I'm talking about?
We need screams.
Exactly.
No, he's got regular old legs. He's got a robe and a cane, I think.
He looks. This guy looks super tall. Is this like the NBA player version of like Admiral Trench? Like, this guy looks huge, man.
yeah, he's got a
Giannis
sweet leather
and Trench
jacket.
Akumpo? Yeah.
That other guy he's standing next to, like,
Yes.
I forgive you for the last one because of that one.
He has 3 different sleeves on that jacket. I mean, that's pretty. That's pretty
Could you imagine him? Yeah, with a shooting sleeve. Which arm would you put it on?
I don't know. Yeah,
Here we go.
Imagine what a big pain in the butt that would be. Like every time you take your T-shirt off, like 3 different sleeves are all.
Oh
folded
my
up.
God.
You ever put your head like accidentally into the armhole?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Not this guy.
Exactly. No, can't do
So
it.
I will say it. So I got the other Edge of Balances on my bookshelf here, and I wanted to say, so like based on that one, it's very red. I wanted to remind us these are the other two. Like they're
Green,
very much
green.
of the same cover. Green, very open, very light.
Yeah.
This is
Have
a
you read
very
these,
dark
Eric?
cover. Yeah,
you
I've read both
these?
of them.
I've flipped through the 2. I think there's 2 Lost Stars manga at least.
Yeah,
I don't know if-
yep, there's
did they
3
ever
of them.
finish
There's
this?
3 of those.
Okay, they did finally finish.
They
that
finished
series,
it,
remember
yeah.
that. Yeah. I flipped through them like in Barnes and Noble, and I've had them on my shelf back in the book box days. But I've never read one of any of the mangas. Surprisingly,
Yeah,
The
They're
Lost
good.
Stars ones are very good.
Yeah.
The little bit that I did read it, that was very good. I remember that.
yeah. Edge of Balance is very good. I did like the second. The second one I think I may have read in almost 1 or 2 sittings. Like it's very the momentum is really really good. And Arkov's a really cool character. So interested to see where this goes. Based on it coming out in May, I would assume this is phase 2-ish because he's younger. So again, it's probably back then.
Sure.
So keep an eye out. Again, pre-order from your local bookstores, comic stores, and stuff will have these in stock. So keep an eye out. And speaking of comics, we did get another comics announcement. Not necessarily a surprise, but I guess kind of more specific than we would have thought. We got the next Tales From series from Kevin Scott. Tales from the Death Star. Got announced. This is the latest comic coming this Halloween. Tales from Vader's Castle, Tales from Jabba's Palace. This is the same stuff. Now we're getting Tales from the Death Star. It included the copy that says this. From the destruction of Alderaan to the shadow of the forest moon, alien creatures, phantom starships, deadly artifacts, and vengeful spirits all stalk the halls of the infamous space station as writer Kevin Scott and an all-star team of artists reveal the hidden evils that lurked within charred remains of the ultimate firepower in the universe. So yeah, another Tales
Charred
book.
Remains. Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why it didn't occur to me that it was the crashed Death Star, not just
Same.
the Death Star.
Same.
Interesting. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
there's
these are
there's an
fun.
old Legends book called like Death Star or something like that. That was
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah, there is.
good.
Yep.
I remember liking it a lot. I haven't read it in probably 20 years, but still.
Death Star stuff's always interesting, and Kevin's done a really fun job with these books. And of course, they're coming
Yeah,
out
these
from
are
Dark
fun.
Horse now. They were previously IDW, and there's little vignettes, and there's like a frame story, and I think it's coming out around Halloween. Obviously, it's like that spooky kind of element that Kevin has.
Yeah.
I will be honest, I missed Tales from Jabba's Palace because, frankly, the publicity wasn't that good, and I forgot it came out, and I missed it. Just straight up, Dark Horse did not publicize it well. Sorry. But I'm hoping these are good. Love how when Kevin gets in his spooky zone, and why not? Why not? I say they're little fun adventures. But even though the Dark Horse publicity isn't great, we'll try to make sure our publicity is great on the Utini.com release schedule. That's right. Go to Utini.com. Check out the release schedule. We update it as often as we can. Starting, of course, with the latest Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars by Sam Max, which is coming out March 7th. And like we said last week, Hunters
No, it's
Battle
not.
for the Arena by Mark
It's
Ashiro, coming out March 7th. Is it on the author's Twitter page? It is not. Is it on the Atini release schedule? For now. Is it on Amazon? It is.
We're just gonna, when March 7th rolls around, it's still not out. We just need to keep changing the date by one day. We'll just change it to March 8th. Change it to March
yes.
9th.
That team
every
would
day.
hate
We're
you.
the database team. Just keep doing that every day.
Like, maybe tomorrow. But maybe. But maybe. But maybe. But maybe. But regardless, if it's coming out or if it hasn't been canceled yet, it's on the Atini release schedule. So go ahead and check that out. Make sure all your previews are, your pre-orders and previews are in. All right, now for our main part of our show, as we do every week, we want to go talk about The Bad Batch. It keeps coming out every Wednesday. Last week, I at least said the 2-part mid-season finale. That's an oxymoron. Mid-season finale. I don't know. Those were great. I loved those episodes a lot. They were really intense. It really got into a great part of the story of the overall arc with the Empire, Palpatine, all kinds of great things. This week, we had episode 9, The Crossing. Before I go into kind of what I thought about it, I want to ask you guys, one, were you able to watch it? I know it's tough to keep up with everything on a weekly basis, but also, what did you think about it? This was a very kind of Tick and Omega episode. What did we think after last week? Any thoughts?
I think it was a step back from what we just got from the mid-season 2 episodes we just got. So, I mean, I really only saw one strong point, maybe 2. Well, I mean, as part of the plot would be the ship was stolen, and that's pretty
big.
much it. You know, like they introduced a new element or like a new fuel element to it.
whatever.
Yeah, Ipsium.
Yep.
But other than that, there was a like emotional aspect and how like Tech deals with problems, and he actually doesn't.
Yeah,
So-
that was. I saw a lot about that, like the fact that basically we're establishing in canon that Tech is neurodivergent in some way, which is great. We love their representation in Star Wars. It was great to see and kind of have a lot of folks like basically confirm that. That being said, I had a similar feeling, and I didn't want to. I was so excited, and I was ready to get back in. But I tweeted about it, and unfortunately, this was the tweet that got more recognition than the ones about how much I love Bad Batch. But I'm having kind of a whiplash this season of really important episodes, like the mid-season finale and things that are really great and pushing forward the Stormtrooper program and things. And then this episode is like, Sid says there's a mine we have to go to, and I'm like, I don't care, but I'm like, why? And this amazing conversation about Tech being like very vulnerable and how I miss Echo too, and just because I'm not crying doesn't mean that I don't care, and I process things differently. And if you process things differently as a viewer, as a person, that's really great. You're in Star Wars, and I love that. But it's in this episode that the fetch quest, and I'm like, it is so tough every week watching Bad Batch and being like, this could be maybe the greatest, deepest, like most intricate plot of Star Wars we've ever seen. Oh my God. Or it could be like, I'm not getting up early for this because it's just a mineral, you know?
You do have to ask the question a little bit of like, how did some of the episodes make it out of the writer's room? And I have to say, this might be blasphemy, but the Filoniverse in general is starting to feel like this, just straight up. Like, it seems like every show that he's like the lead producer on, I guess, like, it has this problem where the story is fantastic and then suddenly it's out of left field, right? And I don't love that storytelling, to be honest. And this is complete speculation. I'm talking out of my ass here, but it does feel a little bit like people talked about working with George on the prequel trilogy, right? That nobody felt like they could tell him no, that, he's the one in charge. And I do wonder if we have not inadvertently made Filoni God a little bit, and maybe that's a mistake. I don't know. That's of course that's speculation, but that does worry me a little bit because this is becoming a pattern in every show that he has. So
yeah,
I don't know.
And
I don't know.
Go ahead, Charles.
Well, I think there's a little bit of this, I don't know, a mixed identity of the animated shows because, like, for instance, the 2-part mid-season finale was
Oh.
arguably like there's dark enough stuff that you like kids might not follow it, or parents out there might not even feel comfortable with their kids watching some of that stuff. And then you get to a week like this week where a lot of the other kind of one-off little adventures, and it's like this can't even hold my attention as an adult. So it's like this weird, like, which show is it? Like, it's
Right.
not one show. It really is not. It's two separate shows, and both of them are good for certain audiences.
Yeah, definitely.
But like, if you just took the ones that we rave about and made that the season of
Cut
Bad
the other ones
Batch,
out entirely.
yeah, I mean, I hate to say that, but
I
like,
know.
I mean, there's still great elements. There's stuff to enjoy. I think the music has been incredible. I
Oh
love
my
the
God.
like
Yeah.
Western motifs that were in this week's for
Animation is
sure.
unbelievable too.
Yeah.
But I did have to laugh in a show where they are constantly forcing, I shouldn't say that, asking a child to do things that children probably shouldn't do. They literally sent her into a mine.
You got little
Literally,
hands.
she worked in a mine.
You got little
Yeah.
hands. Go up and
Yeah.
stick your hand in there.
Yeah. Well,
And they were just down below. They're like, hey, careful. Like,
careful. We might all die.
that was
We
their
might all die.
only guidance.
Well, and it's
I love
interesting
you.
because I think you make a great point that like there is a place for episodic television. Like episodic Monster of the Week, Mission of the Week stuff is great. That is
Right.
and Star Wars has a long history of that. Clone Wars, Rebels, like,
Yep.
but you do that, and then there's like one like Rebels. I think really did it great, where it's like Mission of the Week, Mission of the Week. JG brings up the space
Yeah,
whales.
good.
I know.
And I love that.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite part of Rebels. But they established that tone, and then in the mid-season, you kind of get a big thing, and then they go back and they kind of do a thing. Maybe two things. Bad Batch, I think, is the issue that I'm having with it is that there is a crisis of identity in that if you want to do Mission of the Week, just commit to that and just
Right.
do that, and that's fine. But
It's
they
like
seem
it's
to
like they
want to
had every-
remind you.
They had every episode laid out on the storyboard. They're like, "What the hell do we do with these 6 episodes?" And they just like
wedge it
close
in
their
there.
eyes
Yeah.
and threw them at the timeline. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, there you go. That's where it's gonna be. You know, it's like, why
Yeah.
did that
Like
happen?
if you don't want to do the heavier episodes, that's fine. You don't have to. But if you,
think
do
it would've-
that,
you
and
think
then you
think
leave
it would have worked
that's
better
tough.
a little bit if they did like all of them at one time? Like we did like 4 episodes together of
Great.
the filler type stuff, and
I
they get used to it.
actually talked with someone that I know who got review screeners. And if you remember, the screeners of Bad Batch this season got 14 episodes.
Just
They got
crazy.
a ton. And I asked them, I was like, what, like, I'm having this issue with tone. How did you feel? And they're like, no, I felt the same. Like, so even watching it all at once, it still seems to go that back and forth. But again, I know some people that are really having a great time with it. And again, if you're loving it, that's what we all want to do.
I do love the
But-
show. The show is very good. Let's not miss the point of that. But you're right. There is
Yes.
whiplash. Is a good way to put
Whiplash,
it.
that's it.
Yeah, there is whiplash, and you know the storytelling when it does happen is good. Every standalone story is
Yeah.
genuinely pretty good. It's just
Yep.
like we go
You gotta
back and
pick your
forth
lane.
between, you know, killing off characters versus
Yeah. Versus, what are we going to
Crazy.
do this week?
Yeah, we haven't seen
know.
Crosshair in 5
long
episodes.
time.
5
Been a while.
episodes.
Yeah.
Over a month.
Yeah.
There's a lot
So,
of show
we'll
left
see.
too, by the way, right? How many
Oh,
more episodes
yeah,
are
there's
left? Tons.
16 episodes total? Like, we got a while.
Yeah, we're
More
like
than that.
just barely. I know, crazy.
Hey, you guys want to hear something really crazy before we get off this?
Don't even say it.
Mandalorian season 3 is a week from Wednesday.
I
Oh, my
can't
word.
believe
Yeah.
that. Holy crap! We got to talk
a
about
week
how
from Wednesday.
we got to talk about how we're going to cover that show on this show because
That's a
we got
big
to
one.
figure we got to figure that shit out. Because I don't want to talk about that. So
Yeah.
I guess we can just have Mandalorian episodes for like
Yeah.
whatever 8 weeks straight if you want.
Get
but-
ready for some
Good.
Mando episodes on TLF.
I know.
Um, So yeah, we'll see.
Did a book come out this week? I don't really know. Anyway, did you catch that episode of Mandalorian?
Yeah. Remember when Bo-Katan cut that guy's head off? Anyway.
I know.
Who knows? But then Grogu had to go to daycare. It's like, no, why? We'll see how that happens.
I imagine we'll be having another conversation about Whiplash. We're talking about Mandalorian.
Probably.
I'm also very guilty of that.
Oh
I
God,
don't care. I freaking love it.
I'm excited. Mando in next week. We'll see what happens. Before we get to the High Republic, though, folks, we have one unexpected thing, and we're gonna go to Legends Corner. So here's the thing: we have a lovely, lovely sister show, Legends Look Back, that is on Thursday evenings live. Go to their podcast page if you haven't already. Of course, follow them; they're lovely. One of the hosts, our glorious friend Freddie C. went into our group Slack today and was like, "Hey guys, I'm listening to Dawn of the Jedi, Into the Void." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this book!"
He specifically
old
said. He specifically said, "Okay, I need a fact check ASAP."
Because there was an audio part that he thought he misheard, and he did not. And I would like to, guys, do you mind if I do a little excerpt from this book?
Please.
All right. So it's from chapter 3, and out of context, this is all it says. Trey's Leku, those 3 long, curious tentacles growing from the back of his skull, twitched a little, one tip stroking over his left shoulder, the other 2 pointing like fingers tapping at the air. "Yeah, well, this bitch is a Jedi," Lenore translated.
What?
Which is what it says.
Bitch is canon? No, it's Legends. Bitch is Legends.
Legends.
Hey,
my
Wes,
God.
bitches be Jedi is what I'm saying.
I cannot believe we have been doing a Star Wars podcast for like 4 years. We have been running a Star Wars company for like 6 years. I have never ever heard of this line in this book. I cannot believe that it is printed in that book. This bitch is a Jedi. I cannot believe that. That is unbelievable. Truly. We had to look it up. I thought it was a mistake. It's no wonder Freddie walked when he saw this. He dropped the audio clip into Slack, and we're like, "What is this, like a translation issue or something?" And then Eric pulled it out and actually read it. No,
I think I know Jared's next tattoo at the next Star Wars celebration.
This bitch is a Jedi. If you've also listened to the audiobook, it's great because you can hear the narrator kind of pause, like, "Here we go." Anyway, quick shout out.
I can't believe that made it through the editorial process.
I can't believe it.
And
I love Legends, man. I love it. Check out Legends Look Back Thursday nights. Thank you, Freddie, for bringing that to our attention.
Dawn of the Jedi, Into the Void.
Dawn of the Jedi.
There's a post from 10 years ago on Reddit talking about it.
That's hilarious.
They knew. All right. It's time now for everyone's favorite thing. Time for parent-teacher conferences. So here's what we're doing with the show tonight, folks. With last week's,
just got triggered a little bit.
That's it. Thank you. Welcome for coming. Thank you for coming. Please sit down. There's cold coffee and stale cookies.
What did he do now?
So we have now, as of last, they're already angry at you. Where were you? Is everything late? Yes. So as of last week, with Battle of Jedha's roundtable, we have now gotten through Wave 1 of Phase 2 of the High Republic. We were all very high on Phase 1 of the High Republic. We were all very high during the Phase 1 of the High Republic.
Dude, I heard a word. I heard a word today. I heard a word today that I've never heard, but I'm gonna start using. We were zooted while we were watching that.
Zooted,
dude.
Zoot riot myself. So we were all very stoked about Phase 1 of the High Republic. Light of the Jedi and The Fallen Star both won UTs for Book of the Year. The last 2 UTs have been swept by Phase 1 of the High Republic. And if you've been listening to each episode we've done on Phase 2 of the High Republic, we've been a little more, I don't want to say down or negative, but a little more conflicted about this phase. It's been a little more uneven for us as far as the main stories go. And tonight, we kind of just want to sit down with everything we do with the UTD review, the plot, the characters, the originality, the writing, the entertainment, and the overall thoughts about the initiative. And for this phase, we kind of want to treat it like a parent-teacher conference. Like, what's the current grade that the initiative is getting? What are they doing great at? What needs a little bit of work? And how can we kind of maybe bring it up in the next part? Because I think we all agree there's room to grow, I think, in this phase. But just to remind us, 2 things. 1, before we go into this, we're a bunch of idiots. We don't know what's best. We are farmers. We're having fun with this. Chillax. We hope everyone's loving the High Republic. We love the High Republic. We love Star Wars. This is all for fun.
We don't know anything about anything.
We don't know nothing about nothing. Number 2, I wanted just to remind us about the stories that there have been. Because there have been some delays. There's been some things that have adjusted our memory of the phase. So the main things we're focusing on in terms of this conversation are Path of Deceit, the YA novel that introduced us to the Path of the Open Hand, Kevmo,
Yep.
the others, Convergence, you know,
The other one.
Those
the
other
other
guys.
ones. Convergence, the adult novel by Zrata Cordova that brought us into Arano and Irem, got us the marriage between Ziri and Fontu, things like that. Quest for the Hidden City, the middle grade junior novel by George Mann that kind of had the fun adventure with Rupert Natani, the Padawan, and Solandra's show. We got her introduction. That has not been read by all of us, but it definitely added into the initiative. And then Battle of Jedha, the most recent audio drama we talked about last week. It was the battle on Jedha. That was it. And it kind of almost reset what was happening in a way with Irem and Arano, which we talked about a bit in the previous episode. Go ahead and listen to our thoughts on that. Very heavily featured the Solandra's show and some other people. So, to start us off here, fellas, I want to start just with the plot of the initiative, because we have had a great time with the stories of the High Republic so far. We've gotten really attached to them. They've been pretty epic. If we had to put a letter grade, we shy away from ratings at UTN now. But if we had to put a letter grade on the plot of Phase 2, throw out some ideas. Where would you put it? Nothing's right, nothing's wrong. Basic vibe.
That's
C+?
hard to say. 'Cause
Okay.
We're not finished with it
Well,
yet.
That's
Wave 1 only. Wave 1 only. So Wave 1 is over. We're looking back on the first half of the semester.
C++.
I'm gonna go B minus. I'm like the nice teacher to Charles that says basically the same thing, but like it sounds better.
Yeah.
Like a B minus.
I'm gonna go lower.
Ooh, you're the science teacher.
Yeah, I'll go with
I
C.
know.
I'll go with a C.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll go with C too. It's a barely C in my
Okay.
opinion. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing to be said, and I've made this analogy several times. I don't know if I've said it on the show or not. The analogy that I feel like Phase 1 has been so far, or Wave 1, Jesus, how are we still having problems with this after all this time?
Phase 2.
Phase 2, Wave 1.
Phase
Wave
2,
1.
Wave 1. My God.
There's a whole video about it.
Please, still, that was an awful idea.
Release me from this prison.
Just name it something.
Release me from my bonds. I can't do it. I swear to God. Phase 2, Wave 1. The problem with this is it's like the original trilogy going to the prequels, except we didn't get Return of the Jedi. It's like they did Episode 4, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and then we went back and had 3 prequels filmed. It's like the machete order, right? And it sucks. Like you can't do that. Like meaning that like we didn't get a concluded story necessarily in Phase 1.
What?
Yep.
And
Yeah, there were
Stuff the
cliffhangers, which
landing.
we enjoyed. I mean, they're cliffhangers that got Book of the Year and made us feel a lot, and they were great. But you're right, then it kind of like
just suddenly
Then
dropped off, and now we have to wait like 2 years before we conclude the story.
Yeah.
It's brutal. It's brutal. Yeah,
It is
and I still
brutal.
think that was, again, going back to our disclaimer, we don't know a damn thing about anything. I think it was somewhat of a mistake to do that from a storytelling perspective. And I understand the picture is a lot bigger, and we're going to feel much better when we reevaluate this in a decade, looking back on we can read it all together. Then we can choose our own reading order, by the way. So we can do whatever. It's going to be very interesting to see if Phase 2 has value and merits, like in the end story, because like if we go through the rest of this entire phase with the plot that they're developing so far, and it doesn't like really obviously connects in a super important way to Phase 1, then there's probably going to be guides online. We might even write them ourselves that say, if you really want to, you can maybe skip Phase 2, just go straight to Phase 3. So I think that's hard. We obviously don't know yet what's going to happen with the rest of the phase, but no, I still feel a good word, I think, to use maybe whiplash. I still feel a little bit of whiplash of what we did going back so far. Like we fell in love with characters and dramatic shit happened, and then everybody died, and then we went back to this completely origin story stuff. It's a little whiplashy still. I was hoping it would get better by the end of Wave 1, and it hasn't for me personally. So I think the plot has got some ways to go. Standalone plot by itself, if we had gotten this first and we didn't know anything about Phase 1, that might be a fun thought exercise. I think it's okay. Actually, might be some redeeming qualities.
I will say for me, I think the plot, because I think that's definitely the big picture, right? Is like unfortunately, you cannot escape the phase 1 weight that was put on because they intentionally publicized this as this is needed for phase 1. And I think I agree with everything you said. I think that when I'm reading this with that weight, I cannot help thinking of how does this affect Stellan and Elzar and Avar, like how does this affect those guys? And that's and it's not yet an individual thing, so it doesn't really make sense. But I will say, aside from that, my plot score kind of comes from the fact of one thing I said at the end of the Battle of Jedha, and it's that it feels like as of right now the status quo has not really altered that much. The plot seems to be from the beginning of Path of Deceit, the Path of the Open Hand are not really trustworthy. The Mother is there, kind of guiding some weird things. Iram and Arano, for some reason, are important and are fighting each other. And now, at the end of the wave, at the end of the Battle of Jedha, the Jedi are like, hey, the Path of the Open Hand seem pretty untrustworthy. I think the Mother's doing some weird dark stuff. And now Iram and Arano are back to maybe fighting each other. And I think that just from a purely dramatic structure perspective, you have now had 4 books, multiple comics, and there hasn't been a change. You could basically start at the end of the Battle of Jedha, and the same basic story conventions seem to be the same thing. Yeah, the Path of Deceit or the Path of the Open Hand have done a little bit of violence more. Yeah, you missed the fact that now the Leveler is like kind of more of a real thing. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. But for the most part, the plot hasn't really seemed to take the story in a different direction. Whereas from the beginning of Light of the Jedi to the end of the Fallen Star, you got a different universe.
Yeah,
like that is completely different.
It's risky.
It is
risky storytelling.
Yeah,
but that's why I feel like maybe this didn't need to be laid out the way that it has been laid out. Maybe it didn't need to be waves and waves and waves. It could have been. I mean, at this point, we're saying we almost could. I almost just said phase out. That would have been way too confusing.
Oh my God, don't say that.
We could have taken out wave 1, and maybe what happens in the next wave is really, really important and does move the story along. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, what was the point of doing all these waves? But if we're putting this in terms of like a parent-teacher conference, the way that I feel is that if this is a student, they write their papers, strong opening, but then they just write the same thing in different ways, to fill up their essay.
I've been there. I've been there.
They put in conclusion. So they're just like, that tree is blue. This is a blue tree. The hue of this plant, which has bark, is blue. And I mean, you're just saying the same thing over and over again. Yeah, the Path of the Open Hand sucks. Got it. Like, how do they start doing space drug parties?
I know.
That's what I want to know.
I know. Get to the drugs. Drugs.
That's what we want. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think it was a bit of a risk, and we talked about this briefly before the show. I do have to. This might not be the right time to bring this up. I'm going to anyway. I do have to bring up a little bit of the meta around the High Republic, because the first High Republic phase was wildly marketed, like more marketed than like any book series ever that I can freaking remember.
There was a trailer.
Yes,
it was a trailer, for God's sake. I mean, this
videos,
is like
tweets,
the last time we saw marketing like this was for freaking what's the book with the record and the soundtrack and everything?
Oh, A New Jedi Order, right?
No.
Oh, Shadow of the Empire. Shadow of the Empire.
Yeah. It's like, we haven't seen marketing like this. It's like the olden days, right?
Yeah, we had the team stay up, but we all got together. I think they were revealing it at like 9 p.m. and they didn't reveal it until like 11. So we just waited for them to come on stage and show us what was going on.
I remember that.
It was
a big deal when they
and all the artists and all the marketing teams were sending emails, and there was like a Twitter campaign and a YouTube campaign, and throughout the whole phase, every author was talking about it, and like
But what happened? Holy crap! It's like
gone,
dead now. Like, and they all talked about. There was a High Republic panel, and it
sold out.
Said it made a shit ton of money, and there was only standing room in that panel, and like they were really excited to continue it. They were blown away how successful it was. Blah 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 blah. But now there's been no marketing whatsoever, and that makes me genuinely afraid for the continuation of the story. What's going to happen by the time Wave 3 rolls around, and we still haven't made big steps forward in the plot, and it crashes and burns from a sales perspective? Are they committed to 3 phases if it doesn't?
Oh yeah,
sell?
I will say at least that, yes, because
Okay.
as far as book order, like those things are written or at least worked on.
I maybe used to believe that, but I'm not so sure how to believe it anymore.
That's
Again,
fair.
we don't know a damn thing about anything.
That's
But
true.
I'm not
We're
so
just
sure that
idiots.
I mean, we're still a couple years out from that, so I don't know if that's still going to happen. We'll see. Star Wars books have been canceled before, and it has not gone well, so we will see. But the thing I wanted to bring up is that there's been a lot of company business drama around the publisher this year, right?
Yep.
Because Del Rey is no longer Del Rey, right? They're
Random House Worlds.
And then they became Random House Worlds, right?
Yep.
In addition to that name change, there was a kind of I barely understand what happened. There was a anti-monopoly. The feds essentially decided that a merger could not take place between Random House Worlds and who's the other company? I can't remember. I'm butchering the story.
Simon Schuster?
Simon
No.
Schuster, maybe one of the gigantic publishing monopolies in the world. There was supposed to be a big merger, and it was blocked by the federal government. And it was kind of a PR disaster. The CEO resigned like a couple of weeks ago of Random House Worlds, and there's been a lot of like kind of crazy business decisions that's not very publicized because this is all deep publisher world stuff like that Star Wars fans don't know anything about, frankly. So I do have a little bit of concerns of how all that business stuff kind of plays out in the continuation of these books. I do hope they continue them, and the plan is to continue them as far as we know. But like the fact that there's been absent marketing for this entire phase is a little wild because StarWars.com and stuff is still producing content. Like, have you guys ever done that? You ever logged into StarWars.com and looked at their High Republic stuff? They still have videos about this
still
phase
going.
and stuff on there, but I've never seen them anywhere, not on Twitter or anywhere. So
I guess I want to ask you guys on that note, on the plot here, because I agree, all that stuff is kind of external factors that are affecting it, and it's not getting out as much. Jacob mentions in the chat the Google trends of High Republic. If you ever look at High Republic on Google, like from 2020 when it was at its peak, it's so middling now. We also used to mention every time a book got on the New York Times bestseller list, that was consistent in phase one, and it's definitely not. Let's now turn the corner on this particular category before we go to the characters themselves. What can they do with Wave 2, with Cataclysm by Lydia Kang, with Path of Destruction with Kevin Scott? Like, we're getting more here. What can they do to now kind of turn this around to get the momentum back before Phase 3? Because they totally can.
I don't know.
But for you as a reader, what would they need to do?
As a reader, it's a good question because we obviously know with the production cycle these books have to go through, there's no changing the story at this point. Like,
no.
They can't
So what do we
change it at all.
assume they did, I guess I would say?
Yeah, so let's assume that they're all geniuses because quite frankly, most of these writers are. And, their chalkboard designs I would have loved to be in the writer's room to kind of see some of that stuff of what they planned and kind of how it's all connected. And because they are brilliant creators, let's assume they're going to fix it and make it beautiful. And we're all going to be eating our words, eating crow, as they say.
I love crow. I love crow.
Oh yeah, I hope we're all eating it big time. I think they are going to have to make it more obviously connected to phase one in a super obvious way.
Totally agree.
Yeah, like Marcia Rose, grandmother or whatever the hell she is, is
Marta.
Yeah, now she's in control of the Gaze Electric, and she's got the purple stones, and the Infinity Stones have all been assembled. Like, we have to know, all right? It's all got to come together in a very beautiful, obvious way where, like, the cult suddenly becomes a gang, right? It's the early days of the gang warfare stuff that we see in phase one. So I think that's one of the big things that have to happen. I would love to see some more evidence of some of the other subplots we got, like the evil tree people whose name I can never remember. Drengir. I knew it was a D. Yeah, the Drengir. Maybe something with that would be very interesting. Like, maybe that plays a role. I don't know. We got to see some big connections, though, because I'm worried that it's not going to ever relate. It's just going to be this whole independent thing that kind of takes place in the era, because they did market it that way a little bit, right? Like, just the stories in the era.
Yeah,
but
it's 200 years before, and nobody's met anybody from phase one. So you're just like,
exactly.
But I mean, I think there's a couple ways to look at it. I think they could make it super obvious like that. I think you're right. And that would probably appease the most folks. I think the other thing they could do is maybe we don't know the breadcrumbs they're dropping. Like, maybe they will very cleverly pull in all these subplots that we think didn't matter throughout these books, and they actually have some weight for kind of where this phase ends up. So I think that is another option. But the other thing to keep in mind is we all kind of assume phase 3 is just kind of picking up where phase 1 left off.
That's true.
Right. We don't really know where it ends up. So it's very
Yeah.
possible that a lot of these things that we're learning that they feel so disconnected from phase 1, it's because they are, but then phase 3 is when it's going to really bring all of those plot points together. So
Yeah.
I know we're evaluating this thing that is like 35% done or whatever, percent you want to give it. And it's really difficult, but
Yeah.
I need something. I need
Yeah.
some connective tissue,
If
Yeah.
they do that and they put the main points from the plot points from this phase into phase 3, they still have to give us something that connects phase 1 with phase 2.
I know.
You're gonna
Because,
lose. You're gonna
Yeah.
lose your readers, and they're not gonna come
Yeah.
back
Season
for phase
2
3.
sucks. They might not
Yeah.
renew it for season 3 and 4. You know what I mean?
And I think that's one of the interesting things that I've seen over this past year with Star Wars. We'll go Star Wars specifically. That even if you don't connect something, if your plot and story writing is good, I will latch on. I think we saw that most evidently with Andor, because Andor, I wasn't looking for Rogue One cameos or to see where the Death Star. This was just a great story about a great character, and the dialogue was great, and the plot was great, and I was in. And I think like if in Wave 2, I think if the plots are just good books, that seems reductive. But if you just write really well, I'm going to care. But I will say, because of how much they kind of amped it up, I will agree with you guys completely. At this point, I think you have to have that connective tissue in Wave 2 way more explicitly, because I think that, unfortunately, in order to keep that hype up, because we're now seeing that I now need to buy a $30 book in order to understand the next $30 book that's coming out 6 months late. Like, it's a lot more to give. And I think that they really need to put that in.
We need a masterpiece too. Like you brought that up earlier, Eric.
Yeah.
We need a masterpiece. We have a couple incredible books by the Utini rating system, but we don't have a masterpiece yet in phase 2. And I think if we did have one really strong rock that kind of put it all together, where either the book is just independently phenomenal, whether it has anything to do with, phase 1 or not, or it is intricately connected to phase 1 in a way that we can all really relate to and appreciate. Like, I think it'd be one of those things. And we've had multiple books that were incredible that have stood alone, that have been pretty good, but still haven't connected everything very well. So like they're not quite there, right? Then you kind of have to hit one or the other really strongly, I think, if you want it to be a masterpiece. And we need one. We haven't had one in a long time.
Yeah. You really need to
been
get
a lot
that
of good books in the last year, but we've not had a masterpiece in quite a while. So
yeah, and I think there's definitely potential for it. Endings are really great to hit, and if you really want momentum to go in, I think that could be possible with the stories. But let's hit the characters now, because obviously almost all original characters, save people like Porter Engle, who's been in the Blade miniseries, which we're not talking a ton about comics tonight, but that's been really great. I know people like myself have really loved that. But aside from him, you're basically all originals. The Jedi are basically all new. The villains are all new, even though they may be related. And part of the reason phase 1 was so incredible was because the characters out the gate really hit us. We loved Loden Greatstorm. We loved Bel Zettifar. We loved Markion Rowe as a villain. Like, all these folks from Light of the Jedi, not even by the time we got into Wave 2. Like, Wave 1 hit with characters. And there's a lot of people that love the characters in phase 2, especially on Twitter I've seen. Like, people really kind of get to them. So I want to ask, let's, again, vague grades. If we were to grade the characters of phase 2, whether they stick with us, whether they've been impactful, how are we feeling about just the new players we've seen on the field?
I would go higher than C on this, but I would still probably keep it in that category, probably like C+. Like I can remember a couple, there's a couple characters that stand out to me. I think that's a good exercise. Like, are there characters that really stand out to you in your mind? Like, I remember the mother. She's very interesting and dark and broody. I like her a lot. I can't remember her name, but I can't remember any names from Convergence, because there's so many confusing similar names.
A lot of names.
The princess's name.
Ziri.
Really great character. Ziri, she was a great character.
Axel.
Axel Greylark.
Axel was fantastic.
Cilantro show. That's
I'll move it up, actually.
Standout.
I'll go to B- because of Axel. I forgot about Axel. He was a great character.
He was really great.
Then.
I would give the exact same grade. That's what I was going to say.
B for me as well.
Definitely stronger.
B+
than
for me.
Yeah, that's good.
So generally stronger. So in this case, what have the characters excelled at? We mentioned Axel, right? We all are huge fans of Axel and others, but like what? Because they're very different. than the phase
original.
one.
They're very
characters.
original. Yeah, I know we're going to talk about originality here in a minute, but I feel like
No,
all
hit
the
it.
characters that we've seen are very original. Like Axel was like, I don't know that I can think of another character that's like him in all of Star Wars. Like he's weird and complex, and
Yeah.
I like him a lot. I mean, and the same goes for the mother. She's obviously very manipulative and kind of a cult leader, and there's not a lot of that in Star Wars either. So that's really stood out.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's I think the average character in phase 2 is weaker than the average character in phase 1, but that makes these few really stand out. So I mean, because of those standouts, that's why I would grade this as high as I have, because for the most part, I mean, like Kevmo, honestly, for me, still Solandra Show, Creighton's son, a lot of the Jedi characters kind of just blend together for me. I think I said this a couple weeks ago when we were talking, like a Jedi is a Jedi to me in this phase, whereas like phase 1, no, that's Loden Greatstorm. Like that is Bel Zettifar. Like,
That's
and
true.
I haven't felt the same way. But again, I do feel like that's context, because I'm not letting myself like these characters as much, because I'm like, we're gonna move past them, and they're not gonna have an impact on phase 3. So it's almost like they're hamstrung out of the gate. But then you do still get these really standout characters like Axel that I don't know, they still make you care.
Yeah, you don't latch on or have a connection with him because you know they're not going to be there. And Tilson Graff, for me, he's a scumbag.
Oh
And
wow,
I like that, right?
From
Like
Battle of Jedha.
Yeah, he has one face with another, with like say the Jedi or even like the Guardians of the Wills. Like he's the nice guy, but then he's actually really not. He's the one pulling the strings and like aiding the path of the open hand and aiding people from those different worlds and giving him stuff. So he's I like his character. They did a good job with that.
Yeah, I think that they've done a really nice job, for the most part, on trying to separate these characters from the archetypes of phase 1, except for Creighton's son, who is just Stellan, who is just Obi-Wan. That's fine. There's always going to be that Jedi. But I think we can accept it. But I think that because of that, I am just particularly more drawn to the archetypes of the phase 1 characters. Like, I think they nailed it. I'm like, I love Loden Greatstorm as the wise master Jedi. I love Avar as kind of the leader who's a little bit faulty. I love Keeve as the upstart. I love Bel as the one who has to prove himself and has a dog. Like, you know, I really think they did a great job. And Markion as villain, as just kind of ruthless, quiet, conniving, Moriarty type villain.
He's also hot.
He's also hot. Lest we forget.
Or Belen, who has no like structure to his body.
He can teleport me in 2 books at once. But I think that like all those archetypes were just so good. And again, yes, there is an element of once we get twice as much time with some of these folks, maybe they'll hit harder. But I will also say, spoilers ahead, didn't get a lot of time with Loden, and he's still one of my top 5 characters, you know?
That's
so
true.
I think that overall, some characters, like we said, Axel, Solandra are probably my top 2 of this phase. I do wonder, to your point, Charles, once we're out of this phase and I can just kind of look at their story as a whole, what do I think about them just as characters when I don't have this, like you said, like I'm hamstrung by thinking about phase 1 and 3 connections. But at the same time, my cynical side is saying now to say, how can we get better in wave 2? What can we do? I say you got to have these characters have moments that are so impressive and so great that I don't care that they're not going to be around in a couple hundred years. Like, we need characters like the prequel Jedi and stuff that I know they're all going to die. Yeah. I know that Order 66 is coming, but I love them. I know that Bail Organa is going to blow up on Alderaan. I know
Maybe they didn't have to make this phase connect to phase 1 at all. Like, that would have been an interesting tactic, as if it's just completely independent. Maybe it's supposed to be like that a little bit. We're supposed to understand it that way, but I don't know. It feels like it is loosely connected and the strings are not obvious yet, but maybe that's the point. We'll see how it all pays off.
Yeah.
The only thing I really got is the gaze electric. That word is in both phases.
And like, it's so, that's been my most excited bit when they're like, oh yeah, I flew in on the gaze electric. I'm like, the what? The what? It's a Leonardo DiCaprio meme, like, hey, gaze electric. Like, you know, and I think that stuff, so let's use that as a segue, go right into the originality of this phase. I think they've done a really cool job at taking stuff like that from phase 1. Here's the Gaze Electric. We call it the leveler. Like, okay, this is very creepy. I understand this. But this phase has arguably done even more originality with Jedha, with all the different religions, the Irem and Arano bringing the war. We talked in Convergence about how much more mythology it added.
Yeah.
And I think some of it has landed, some of it has kind of gone by the wayside, which is fine. How would you guys grade purely the originality and expansion of phase 2 so far?
That's a good question, actually. I think High Republic stuff is always going to score high in originality because it is fairly original just in and of itself. I will say that the decisions they've made have not been as wild, I think, for phase 2. Like phase 1, we got all kinds of new crazy stuff. The ships, guns are powered by lightsabers, and Jedi can use the Force to manipulate the weather and crazy shit, right? But
and the drugs,
exactly.
drugs.
And there's drugs. They're all doing coke. Like, it's pretty wild, right? So, and originality for phase 2, like we have a cult, I guess. That's kind of weird, but it has been done before in Star Wars, and the Han Solo trilogy that's pretty much the whole theme of the books is this huge cult thing.
We get cults. We know cults.
Right. Yeah. We know cults. We're familiar with that. Yeah. Next thing.
We're talking about this like Jedi are not in a cult.
I know.
Wearing their hooded robes.
No, they're a cult of good guys, Charles. They're the good guy cults.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's different.
So that's original. I mean, well, not that original, but it's still around. The whole warring planets that can't get along, that's been done before. Let's be honest. Like, that's been done a lot of times in Star Wars with like multiple planets. It's weird they're so close together. That's a cool thing. But we got that in phase 1, technically. So, that's not necessarily news. So I don't know. How original is it? I think I wouldn't score it as high. I don't think. Probably.
I think I would score it higher. This is the highest grade I would give you. I'll give this a B+.
Really?
Hey, there you go. I was gonna go A-. So speak on it,
Charles.
Yeah.
Well,
why?
We're sitting here having a conversation about how it doesn't seem to have any connection to phase 1. So doesn't that argue in and of itself that it's quite original because it's all this new stuff that doesn't feel like it was done in phase 1?
Yeah.
So I have enjoyed the Path of the Open Hand. I agree that it really hasn't progressed, but I really thought the idea of it was very interesting. What's the group called? The Convocation? Is that what it is?
Yep, Convocation.
Right? That's on Jedha. I mean, all the different interpretations
the religious
of
stuff
the
is all
Force.
very interesting.
Yeah, I find that really cool. So, I mean, B+. It doesn't feel as overwhelmingly original as phase 1 did, but that was opening up a whole new era.
Yeah,
so it can't totally rewrite things like that, but I don't know. I guess if I'm looking for a silver lining about everything else that we're saying, it's that this does feel pretty darn original because I don't know how it ties back to anything else.
Yeah.
That's fair.
The belief systems of all the different people on Jedha, and it's all different from just Jedi and Sith. So they are elaborating on that point. Like, that's more prevalent in anything that we've read or before this. Especially in like the original trilogy, it was just the Jedi believe this, and other people believe what the Jedi believe, kind of, and not. And it's like 2 things, and that was it. Now we've read about 5-6 different belief systems that they just briefly talked about in the Battle of Jedha, and I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I would also grade. So yeah, I'm gonna give like an A- to the originality. I will say, ironically, I think it's very original and very interesting with all these belief systems. That has somewhat hurt my ability to understand the initiative. Like, with the comic specifically and the Battle of Jedha, the amount of groups has actually kind of made it harder for me to grasp on to like the plot and things like that. But where it worked best for me, and I said this during the roundtable at the time, is Convergence. I think that the mythologies of Irem and Arano with the history of the war with the people really worked for me. And again, seeing the Jedi kind of in this slightly different era really worked well for me. So I think that as far as originality goes, you can kind of just keep going where you're going right now. Maybe condense it and kind of help focus in a little bit on here are the plot points we're really going to hit on in phase 2 or wave 2.
It's awful.
Wave 2, phase
it's
2.
Awful. It's never.
Oh my God.
Being bad. This is the one legitimate criticism I have for the entire High Republic. It was a stupid ass idea to call them those.
It's so hard.
So hard. Unbelievable.
Wave 2, keep it going. It's very original right now, but maybe I want to see us now focus in on a couple of the concepts and really let them hit home before we introduce too many new things. Because now I think I want to keep us going in the direction we're going here. But of course, that's all decided by the writing.
Yes.
Our second to last category here, one of the big things with Phase 2 was that it was all, well, mostly new writers, right? Our books are written by people that did not have full-length novels in the first phase. Yep. We kind of, Charles Soule, Claudia Gray, and all those folks kind of took us a step back. There's still some comics going on. Justine Ireland's writing some comics. Kevin's writing comics. DJO is writing High Republic Adventures, sure. But we got Zoraida Cordova. We got Tessa Gratton and Justine Ireland for Path of Deceit. But then we got George Mann for Battle of Jedha and things like that. How would we grade the writing overall? Now, this is nothing about the writers as people. We love all these people. They're good enough to write Star Wars books, to be clear. For the purposes of this exercise, how has the writing helped our understanding of the initiative and kind of the propulsion of the plot forward? Where'd we put that?
I would score that pretty high, actually. Like,
great.
A. I give it an A, honestly. I think the writing has been quality. There has been a couple small challenges that the writers had to really overcome that they did okay with it. They might have scored a little bit lower in these specific areas. The planet names in Convergence, for example, never stopped being confusing. All the way until the end of the book, I still never had it right. Like, that was very confusing. Audio dramas, as we have found, are really friggin' hard to get right. Like, it takes a lot of perfect coordination, and I don't know that
it's almost unfair to the writer.
Yeah, I don't know the creators in general have quite figured out that new format. Even Dooku Jedi Lost, which in my opinion was the best of all of the audio dramas we had, still had trouble with things, and it's hard.
Creighton and Creighton.
Maybe that's intentional. Maybe it's supposed to be extra challenging, so you have to think about it a little harder and that sort of thing. But I don't know. We're so used to audio books with the incredible narrators that we have that the difference between that and audio dramas is quite stark. But I think overall the writing has been very, very good. I welcome all the new authors that we've had come into this. I mean, I love the fact that we're getting new authors. I hope we get more even in the next waves, and we already know we are. So, I mean, I think the writing has been pretty damn good, quite frankly.
Love that.
Yeah, I agree. I would score it a little bit lower than that. I think I'd give it a B. I still think it's been strong. I think that, I've never had to stop in a book and been like, what is going on? Like, I think that they lay out their stories well. But there haven't been as many of those moments where in phase 1, there were definitely moments where I read something and I was like, that is nominee for quote of the year. Yeah. Like the pole star stuff and the Elzar man on a dragon and, all those kind of things. Like, I can literally still remember those quotes. And I don't know.
The Corey Helton grunt test.
Yeah. I'm not grunting a whole lot through phase 2 so far. So I think it's been strong. It's definitely getting the job done. I think it'll continue to be that way, but it hasn't been, its peaks haven't been as high.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair.
Yep. I think nothing to add. I think Charles, word for word, bar for bar. That's kind of where I am, is that probably give it a B. I'm really liking what they're doing, but same. I want a little more impact. I think that goes back to a little bit of the character moments too, is that if the writing had more of those moments or more of those kind of quotes or moments that kind of evoke that kind of awe or whatever it may be that was in phase 1, then I think it would have been a little more impactful as far as the writing goes for phase 2. High hopes for the next wave, but yeah, I need that grunt. I need that grunt when I'm reading the Star Wars epic fantasy,
What would y'all think about the Battle of Jedha being a novel and then one of the other books being the audio drama that came out? Like Convergence?
Can you imagine Convergence being the audio drama? You wouldn't understand a damn thing that happened the whole book.
And then they would hear.
What planet are we on?
Like Battle of Jedha was just the easiest they could do as an audio drama.
Exactly.
But
I will say, I would have liked it more, but because I think of the Rising Storm, and that's like the Battle of Valo.
Right.
It's essentially, and that was great. And I don't know if it was because of the prose versus the dialogue, but
Path of Deceit could probably work as an audio drama.
I think it could.
Yeah.
Hearing the mother's speeches, hearing
them
having
eat those orbs.
Oh,
That was
yeah, I think
Don't ever do
weirdly,
that.
I think that could work.
Stop that. Ugh, here's my skin crawl.
Well, you know what, Wes? I like that because let's use that to jump into entertainment value. Because again, we are essentially all doing this because we like to consume Star Wars content. We like to have fun. We all have jobs that aren't this. This is what we do outside of work to like our lives, right? We're entertained by this stuff. This is entertainment. And I think overall our entertainment grades have been pretty solid for this wave. Where are you putting just pure entertainment value of the events, of the stories, of everything that we've seen so far? What do we think? I'm going to go for it. I'll give it a B, straight up.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I'll echo that as well, actually. I don't think I could go any lower. I don't think I could go any higher. It's been okay. It's been pretty good.
Yeah.
B's like the good enough stage, right?
B minus.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, I
B
still
Well, I
wanna
mean, to
keep-
me in elementary school, it was failing, and now I'm in trouble. But like, yeah, for now, yeah, that's, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm fine.
I know. Talk to your therapist about that, Eric. I want to keep going. I think that's the biggest
Yeah,
key, right?
Great point.
I think that's why I brought up all that stuff earlier about phase 3, and I have a little bit of anxiety about phase 3. Like, I hope it keeps going. Like, oh my God, I'm going to be so upset
Yeah.
if they decide to discontinue this crazy initiative. Like, it's the boldest thing that's ever been done in Star Wars literature history.
Yeah.
And I want it to pay off so desperately so this thing can happen again in the future. And, I'm legitimately worried that it might not. So, I want to continue with it. I want to keep going with the story. I want to see how, even if phase 2 does not end up being connected at all to phase 1, I'm happy to be here for this ride. It's a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
I still want a masterpiece soon.
Yeah.
But everybody, you always want a masterpiece. You want every Star Wars book you read to be unbelievably good. And there's only, what is that? Like, I think less than 5% of the overall books fall into that category by our rating system. So
Yeah. I think that in order for us to kind of just get that entertainment way up in the next wave too, is that, it's been fun, but I want to have those, oh my God, I need to text someone moments, like where I'm reading the book and the dragon moment happens, or the Starlight Beacon falls into the ocean, or the Jedi are coming. Like I need, there's gotta be something with weight in wave 2 that I really remember. Like there's been a lot of ideas
up
in
Yeah,
wave 2.
building
Yeah,
up.
like here's the leveler. It killed a person, but okay, we're not quite there. And what do we think? Oh, and there's like the battle and like in Battle of Jedha when all the troopers started coming down and fighting against each other. That was close. I'm like, that was fun. But like I'm still waiting on that turn, and I think we're right on the cusp, right? I mean, and the next books are called Cataclysm, Path of Destruction. Like it's in the titles, and I feel like the third act of the movie, right, that's about to kind of explode.
Hope
So while I think Wave 1 was like a B and was pretty good, similar to you, Corey, I believe it's coming, and I believe it's going to be here, and I'm excited for the ride. I just kind of wish the ride had started going down the big hill a little earlier.
Yeah.
Since I know we're only getting 2 waves.
We've put the time in, right? I don't want to call it work, but we've put the time in, and we need the payoff. That's just kind of where I'm at right now with the next couple of books that come out. So
yeah, I feel you.
yeah.
All right, so as we kind of round out our parent-teacher conferences, thank you all for coming. I'm glad. Again, we love them. We love them in class. They're great. They're such a great student.
Just wait till your father gets home.
Overall, this wave as a whole, we've done our little individual grades. Again, it's like whose line is it anyway? These mean nothing. But if we're gonna overall grade wave 1, and let me tell you, what are you putting at the bottom of the report card? The one thing I really want to see for the rest of the semester, for the next wave.
The improvement comments.
Your child needs Ritalin.
Sorry to trigger all of us who are all to go through these.
This is a terrible analogy. Man. Why did you do this to us?
We're getting too comfortable. Welcome back, buddy. We missed you.
I know. Seriously.
Well,
I would give the overall phase so far like a B minus. I think like it's still there. It's got some potential to grow, and I will be shocked if it makes it into the A to A plus range by the end of the semester. But it might make it there. It's got a lot of work to do if it is going to make it there.
Yeah.
I think the improvement comments are things I've already said. I think I think we need to see a little more connection to the big picture. or a very clear climax in a very obvious way where it all makes sense. Of course, we had to go to these planets that are warring with each other. Of course, we had to see all this buildup of the cult. Of course, we had to see, all the religions. Like, I hope that either one of those two things happen or both of those things happen. I think that would get it to the, out of the needs improvement phase.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I went way too hard on an analogy there. Sorry.
It was good. We're in this. We're all gonna need to take a shower after this and think about what we've done. I wanna say it only because I basically agree with you almost again word for word. It's super easy for me today. Like I'm gonna give it a B- as a whole. I think that we really need to find those moments that this is why I read the High Republic. This is the scene. This is the moment. I guess I do love Solandra's show as much as Avar Chris. I guess I do need to read this. I can't wait to recommend folks. And I will say, my one goal for the end of phase 2 is I need to tell someone in my real life, you cannot skip phase 2. You need to read it before you read phase 3. Currently, I'm not quite there, but I want that to be the legacy, is that, no, you got to read these. That they are important and they are really good. So I believe we can get there, but we just need that moment. Charles, wind us out, and then Wes will finish us up.
I agree. I mean, B-. And interestingly enough, this conversation has helped me feel better about this phase, similar to how our roundtables are done. Because I realized, man, I really can't go lower than this because of this, or whatever it is. And that is a good thing to do. I think periodically is to just reflect back. So yeah, B-. If this student, as it were, needs to do one thing better, it's focus. It really is focus.
Yeah.
They need to zero in on like what is the goal and start doing the things to get towards that goal. But yeah, strong effort. It's not an effort problem. It's just a little bit of a focus issue.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Also, let us know when things are coming out.
So much. It's so terrible.
They're great. They're great. I love them. I love seeing them every day.
Some unprocessed memories that I got. I'm going to get my therapist watching EMDR on me after this.
I was hovering around the C- range until we started talking about how some of these characters are more impactful than I had originally thought. So, like you're saying, with Solandra show, who I haven't read before, and I loved her character in the Battle of Jedha. And then Tilson Graff, who I brought up, was in the Battle of Jedha. I know all the characters in the Battle of Jedha because I did the roundtable, but
that'll do it, won't it, Charles?
But Axel Greylark, that was a great character. So I was like, these are all coming back and be like, these are great characters that you can kind of latch onto, and you want to know what happens with them, because Axel Greylark was a big question mark in the Battle of Jedha. Like, what does he know? Who is he talking to? And they were still talking about him, even though he wasn't necessarily in the audio drama. So, like, where's that going? So that added a little bit of entertainment value there, too, because there's some anticipation on what his story is going to bring. So, B-. We all got B-. That's great. We won't get grounded.
We agree. Look at that. We did it, everybody. I think that there's so much potential ahead. And again, we still have some time. We got a break. Jedi Battle Scars is coming out next month, and then we have another month. April is when Cataclysm is hitting. We're starting out like we used to. Adult novel first. Random House Worlds and Lucasfilm. I'm begging you, please just tell people what order to read these in. Like, very publicly. We will do it. We will, on this podcast, guys, I'm ready to keep telling folks. If you're listening, please tell your friends. But publishers, we need a little more help in Wave 2. Just a little bit. Whether there's tweets. I know Twitter is a dumpster fire. Everyone hates it right now, but everyone's still on it. Keep it going, because I want to see this next wave really explode. So, with all that being said, it's fun to talk High Republic. We're going to be, of course, doing different shows for a while. Next week will be something different. Maybe we'll do a little Mando recap. That might be fun. Talk about season 3. Because
it'll be fun.
God, I said it at the beginning of
Mandalorian. I don't even remember. Book of Boba Fett was last time, wasn't it?
You mean the Book of Mandalorian? The Book of Mandalorian?
The Book of Mandalorian was only the 2 episodes in the middle of Book of Boba Fett.
God.
Bethany had never seen any of the Mandalorian or the Book of Boba Fett, and she binged it in like 3 days.
Holy
we
should get Bethany on to give her
She's
thoughts.
hooked.
I know.
What are you doing here?
Mandalorian is in a lot of ways the universal unifier, like
Yes.
among
Yeah,
fans. It's
that's
so
what-
good.
Yeah.
I've not really seen anybody have strong criticism of the show. I've seen a couple goofy things some things I agree with, like about Grogu being too much in the show and
Yeah.
things like that. But like everybody freaking loves Mando. Even the
Yeah.
casuals, the filthy casuals, all
The
love Mando.
filthy
And
casuals.
I freaking love that.
Oh yeah,
I
I'm
love
like,
that.
ugh, Grogu. I'm so annoyed with him. He's too cutesy, whatever. And then all of a sudden, the second I hear, bum bum bum
I know.
bum, I'm like, I'm in. Mando's back.
I know every time.
So yeah, we'll do
the
some
little
Mando
bastard
stuff.
shows back up on screen. You're like, hell yeah, use the Force.
Use the
Every
Force,
single
baby.
time. I know.
So we'll do some Mando next month. We'll maybe talk about some episodes. We'll do some recaps, and then of course we're right back in. I will start saying it now. Corey, the Battle Scars episode roundtable is your roundtable.
Oh shit.
Put
You
the
have a
stars in
month, about a month and a
Battle
half.
That's plenty of time. That's plenty of time.
You got it.
I read the Mistborn trilogy in like 10 days. I can read this shit in like an afternoon.
It's gonna be great.
We have plenty of time to get you like the fifth brother's hat or whatever that is that he's got. in
Oh
the
my
background
god! Second only to Snoke's stupid hat. But next week we'll say it. I was probably gonna get some Mando talk. So tune in next week. Also, if you have extra thoughts on the High Republic Phase 2, let us know. Leave a comment on this video. Hit us up. Let us know what you're most excited for. What have you loved the most about Wave 1? We got so much of this coming up, and we can't wait for more. But for now, we gotta wait. Because that'll do it for this week's episode of The Living Force. If you support us on Patreon, thank you so much. You are the reason we're able to do anything here. A special thank you to Brian Dooley, Earl Q, Robert Thomas, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, and James T, Elizabeth Cloutier, Ashley Ingalls, Chris Carrizo, and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at Eric Eilerson, Corey is at Corey M. Helton, Charles is at C. Hankel, and Wes is at Boss Wes. A special thank you to Matt Davenport, our amazing editor, Ryan, our graphic designer extraordinaire, and Wes, our producer and community manager. Thank you to Corey, Charles, and Wes for potting with me tonight. Thanks to all of you for hanging out and loving the High Republic. And as always, may the Force be with you.